Hi everyone. Welcome back to Poems That Changed Me. This is week 3 of National Poetry Month, also known as Rilke Month, here at the Poems That Changed Me World Headquarters in San Francisco, California. Today I'm going to begin with a little story about Rilke's ninth elegy. Last year, a little over a year ago, first week of March 2020, I was slated to be on a number of panels at the Associated Writing Programs Conference, the AWP conference, which was held in San Antonio. And as some viewers may recall, there was some back and forth about whether the conference was actually going to happen. It was the very first days of the scare about COVID. And there had actually been someone who had been released from a local hospital who had tested positive for COVID, who had been walking around the Riverwalk in San Antonio, and there were genuine concerns about a major outbreak. Most writers canceled their appearance at the conference. The conference went on anyway. All of my panels I was supposed to be on were canceled except for one. But I also had plans to go to Houston. For the last 2 years, I've been writing poems in response to the work of Cy Twombly. And that's actually going to be my next book. And I had plans to go to the Cy Twombly Gallery at the Menil Collection in Houston, and I was not going to miss that. I had plans to meet with the curator and walk around the gallery with her. So I flew from San Francisco to Houston and went straight to the gallery, spent hours at the gallery, learning more and more about what was happening in the pandemic here and abroad, and staring at Twombly's amazing, huge piece that takes up an entire room. So the title is Untitled, but in parenthesis it is Say Goodbye Catullus to the Shores of Asia Minor. And it's an unbelievable painting, I think one of the great paintings of the 20th century. Twombly was obsessed with Rilke in much the same way I'm obsessed with Rilke. And I am obsessed not only with Twombly, but I'm obsessed with Twombly's obsession with Rilke. And in this painting are these words from the ninth elegy. I'm reading from the Stephen Mitchell translation. Once for each thing, just once, no more. And we too just once, and never again. But to have been this once completely, even if only once, to have been at one with the earth seems beyond undoing. I've always loved these lines, and I've loved these lines in that painting. But in that moment, this notion of being on the earth once and the brevity of this collided with a growing sense, for me personally, but I think a lot of us, that this was a pandemic that was going to take a lot of lives. And I found myself unbelievably moved by the painting and by this poem. I got on an airplane and flew from Houston to San Antonio, not really knowing what to expect at the conference. But on the plane, I took out this very book that I've had since graduate school, and I started reading the elegies without putting the book down, just one after the other. When I got to the ninth elegy, and this part in particular, I started weeping on the plane. There was a woman sitting next to me with a mask, the first time I had seen someone travel with a mask, and I just kind of lost it. And there are two parts of the poem that really wrecked me, and this is one of them. Praise this world to the angel, not the unsayable one. You can't impress him with glorious emotion. In the universe where he feels more powerfully, you are a novice. So show him something simple, which formed over generations, lives as our own, near our hand and within our gaze. And then later on in that same stanza, this is sort of the middle of the poem. And these things which live by perishing, know you are praising them, transient. They look to us for deliverance. Us, the most transient of all. They want us to change them utterly in our invisible heart, within, oh, endlessly within us, whoever we may be at last. Earlier, one stanza above, he says this, and these two things are really connected for me. Here is the time for the sayable. Here is its homeland. Speak and bear witness. More than ever, the things that we might experience are vanishing. For what crowds them out and replaces them is an imageless act. This notion of our transience, this notion of a call to praise, this idea that this life is the time for the sayable, really affected me deeply as someone who thinks of himself as devoting his life to the sayable, as someone who devotes himself in his work to teaching and to reading and to writing. At this moment in which, as Rilke reminds us, we are all perishing. Some because of the pandemic and some of the other reasons that we all perish. Toward the end of the poem, Rilke writes this, and this is when I just lost it on the plane. Earth, isn't this what you want? To arise within us, invisible. Isn't it your dream to be wholly invisible someday? O Earth, invisible, what, if not transformation, is your urgent command? Earth, my dearest, I will. Oh, believe me, you no longer need your springtimes to win me over. One of them, even one, is already too much for my blood. Unspeakably, I have belonged to you from the first. You were always right, and your holiest inspiration is our intimate companion, death. Look, I am living. On what? Neither childhood nor future grows any smaller. Superabundant being wells up in my heart. So, many people think of the Duino Elegies as being Rilke's great poem of lament, and the sonnets to Orpheus as being his great project of praise. I think that these two gestures come together beautifully in the Ninth Elegy. It is a lament for the transience of our lives, but it is also a song of praise for the possibility of our lives, the possibility of the time of the sayable, the possibility of art, the possibility that I, standing in front of a painting by Cy Twombly, reading the words of Rilke, can find joy, immeasurable joy, balanced by, buoyed by, in concert with a looming sense of tragedy that we knew was coming for the planet. There is no greater elegy/praise to me than this poem. And this flood of emotions, you can just feel it coursing through this poem. Seemingly contradictory, but I think actually this great marriage of the purpose of art in general, which is to give voice to the unsayable and to make us feel a part of this planet that is sustaining us and killing us at the same time, and that we might be sustaining and killing as well. These merging forces, these great emotional contradictions that are the great tensions of life and the great tensions of art. This poem has changed me more than anything I can think of. And if there is a text for me that is proof or manifestation of the divine, it's the Ninth Elegy.